Have you ever finished a 5-minute training round with a partner and thought, "F me, what a waste of time"? You got smashed, your body's a little bit worse for wear, and your brain cannot remember a single thing you just did. In this video, we're going to transform the way that you think about training and give you some guidelines to speed up your progress, improve your understanding, and hopefully make the process a whole lot more enjoyable from the things that I've learned through my career. Training at 60%. I remember when I first started the sport of Jiu-Jitsu, I was very, very green. I came from a very heavy athletic background, from a professional sport in another career. And the guys that I decided to sign up to Jiu-Jitsu with were all ex-athletes. Our training room at the beginning when I was a white belt was the craziest training room I've ever been a part of. We were all above 85 kilos except for 2 people. We were all ex-professional athletes or in the defense force somewhere, or all very physical, all lifted a bunch of weight and genuinely had a massive competitive drive to win at all costs. And now this is an absolute disaster for progressing quickly in Jiu-Jitsu, and it's likely something you guys are doing already. You're training with way too much intensity, you're trying to kill each other, you're trying to keep tension on the entire time because you're probably scared because you're not developing many skills, and this is exactly what we used to do. I remember we would actually even count the tallies of submissions that we got each other with, so that the next session you knew that they were coming after you. If you ended around like 3-2 or 2-3, the next time you train with that guy was an absolute nightmare because we were all big, we were all jacked, we were all fast and strong, and we wanted to submit each other as much as humanly possible. You know what? I'm surprised that we didn't get injured more than we did. I broke a couple of toes and I dislocated a couple of fingers, but that was about as bad as it got. The lesson here that I learned that transformed my training, especially when I moved to my new gym, was to tone it down. Go at 60% for the majority of the training sessions. The amount of knowledge that I gained, the amount of time that I now have to see common reactions and develop my understanding and piece together sequences is far superior than running everything as a sprint. Imagine what you could do mentally at like zone 2 cardio levels, where you're able to have a conversation, you're able to watch a Netflix movie while you're on the treadmill, just walking at a nice pace, or just very lightly jogging, or you're on a bike just kind of pedaling over and ticking over, versus what you're going to remember of the podcast you're listening to while you're sprinting as if you were being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. They're not the same. You've got to just tone it down. Try and go at 60% for the majority of your rounds as much as you can, and I guarantee you will learn significantly more than you would otherwise. Train positionally. This is something I also never did when I first began the sport, and it has transformed my training recently. And the analogy that I used to work with this is that, you know, when you go bowling for the first time with your kids, or you've got a nephew or a cousin or something that's coming along and they're between the ages of 6 and 10, and you give them the little ramp that they use to push the ball down because they're not quite strong enough to get it, and you make sure the bumpers are up. That is positional training. Now, some of you are going to have to use the ramp and the bumpers, but most of you are just going to use the bumpers. So that no matter where you go within a round, the constraints of positional training are without going to eco, the constraints of that positional round are going to ensure that you can bop your way down the lane, but you're at least going to knock over one pin. Maybe. You're at least going to knock over one pin, right? Instead of just doing a normal open round where the lanes aren't up and you're very inaccurate, you have no idea what you're doing, you're probably using too much force, too much strength, too much speed, and you're going to end up down the lane, down the lane, down the lane, no success, very frustrated, and not learning a whole bunch about technique and how you want to bowl the ball correctly with the right spin and all those sorts of things. So when you're in training, try and prioritize positional training rounds, because the amount of successful reps that you're going to get with a specific goal in mind, which we covered in a previous video, is going to quintuple at least. And if you don't believe me, ask yourself this. When was the last time you were in a turtle attacking position in all of your training rounds? Maybe one every 5, one every 10, if we're being real. So if you're only doing it a 10th of the time that you're training, how are you expected to get good, or at least better, than somebody who's getting as many reps in one positional round than you are in an entire month or week of training, depending on how many times you train? You can't expect to have the same level of skill development. It's just not going to happen. Work on what you need to work on, not what you want to work on. This has been a massive piece of advice that has transformed my training. When I first began jiu-jitsu, I watched Lachlan Giles' no-gi chokes, or high percentage no-gi chokes, instructional. And I decided that I've got a ridiculously long wingspan and that dasas are really fun because of that, long, strong arms. And all I used to do in my training, because I was only watching one instructional over and over and over again, was go for das attacks. It was something I was good at, and I wanted to do as much as I could, remembering that I was in a training room where it was very embarrassing if you got submitted and lost for the day, which is stupid, don't do that, and very validating if you won for the day. And I was hell-bent on winning because I'm very fucking competitive. So I would go in and just try and das everybody. And now what ended up happening was I missed out on a lot of fundamental skills like passing half guard and passing in general, because I literally just used to thumb post single and then das everybody. And that led me to being very predictable. And so my training partners learned how to defend dasas somewhat, or at least they knew exactly what I was going to go for, and they just shell up and stop me from doing anything. This obviously leads to very frustrating sessions, low amounts of progress, and cheeky bastards that want to ankle lock you all the time, which did end up happening. And so the lesson here is actually working on the things that you want to work on about 20% of the time. Working on things that you need to work on, like your passing, like your stand-up, like the things that you've been avoiding. If you're a big guy, going on your back, because if you don't, you're going to get exposed. I'll tell you a story about that in a second. But the things that you're avoiding usually are the things you need to do. And that's why you're avoiding them, because it's gross and it's going to feel clunky. And most people never eclipse this, by the way. They go through a 10-year jiu-jitsu career only working on what they want to work on, and subsequently ending up with a very shallow skill set. So if you want to transform your training, the way that you think about it and the way that you perform, I recommend that you at least have 80% of the things you need and 20% of the things you want. Treat training as an experiment, not a competition to win. Now, because I was treating training as a competition to win, I got pretty good at competing, to be fair. But the thing that I didn't get good at was being exposed by getting put on my back at a blue belt competition where I was finally facing somebody who had the ability to do that. It was I believe he was a Tongan or a Samoan guy, I don't quite remember. He was an Islander, and you guys in Australia will understand what I'm talking about. Well, you guys in America should understand as well. You've got a lot of Samoans and Tongans in the NFL as well. But anyway, so I tried to hit a takedown very sloppily on this guy, and he ended up putting me on my back. And it's not that I didn't, it's not that I freaked out when I was there, but it's just I didn't have a clear pathway of what to do. And the stakes were pretty high because this guy was one of the biggest guys I'd ever rolled against. And I was also in a competition where scoring points and not losing definitely mattered. And so, so this was a symptom of my training at the time, that I hadn't spent enough time treating training as like an experiment. I didn't want to go on my back because that would mean I would lose the training round. I didn't want to go into guard play because if I got passed, I was probably going to get submitted because my guard retention was so poor. And if I stopped treating training like a competition and started treating it like an experiment, then I would do what I do now when my training's been transformed. And I genuinely think that it's just about seeing what works and what doesn't work. And it's not an aversion to getting submitted that is the most important part about training, because it's no longer a competition. The most important thing is that I'm figuring out brand new ways to do things and how to iterate on the current things that I'm good at, start to implement things that I'm bad at and build them up as tangible skills by attaching them to things that I'm good at, and treating it as an experiment where it's not wrong or bad if I make a mistake or get submitted. It's just another way that I've found that doesn't work. And now this builds you into a mindset that allows you to have a complete game, a holistic view of the sport where you don't avoid anything, and significantly higher skills and progression. And so that has been brutally honest training advice that has transformed my training. I hope it does the same thing for you. If you want a foolproof system that's already been completely fleshed out through thousands of students that I know exactly what you need to work on, you have no idea what you need to work on, there's a link in the description below for my community where you can sign up and get coached one-to-one by me. If you don't want to sign up for that, there's free emails down below that'll teach you 31 ways in 31 days to get exponentially better by thinking differently and training more efficiently, just like these videos. And if you can't be fucked using any of that and you want to stay on YouTube, they recommend this video right here so you can enjoy that one too. Until next time.